Here we have the FlashForge Finder 3D printer, and I went ahead and cut the box open thinking that there was going to be an inward manufacturer's box, but that's actually not the case. This is the box for the printer, and so I'm going to have to set this on the ground in order to get it out. Here we have the instructions, quick start guide right here, some tools, and certification card from China. This looks like the PLA, and I got red. And a USB cable. Interesting, a glue stick. Not sure what that's for. My power cable. And I need to raise this up in order to remove this lower styrofoam packaging. Alright, so straight out of the box, the instructions tell me to peel off this blue tape, and then we need to remove these zip ties right here. And do the same on the other side. The USB port is right here, and a smart stick can go in there, and one is actually included. And here on the back you have just a plug for the power, and this is a tray to hold the filament. And so here's the filament, and after I take the plastic off, I'll go ahead and install it in there. So how you feed the spool in here is you just find this spot here, the end of the spool, and you can basically just push it back through here, and I think it just snaps off like that. And place it in here, and then feed it through this hole. So that it comes out like this. And then just slide it in here and it snaps in. And then you can take the feeder and put it in through here. Until it comes out. And place this end in here. Plug in the power cord. After plugging it in, we go ahead and turn it on, and it will initialize. Go ahead and tap Tools, and then hit Level. And then screw 3 nuts under the platform anti-clockwise, which is this way. Okay. Yes. So unscrew. Distance is too big. Unscrew corresponding nut under platform clockwise until hearing a steady beep. Alright. So go up until it beeps. After all that's done, hit finish. And the bed is going down. Go back up here and you press filament, load, and basically it is heating up. As you can see, after heating, the filament is coming down through here. So here's how you install. I downloaded the latest version of FlashPrint. It's also on your thumb drive that comes with the printer. So just double click on that, hit run, pick your country, hit next, hit accept, and then wherever you want to install, go ahead and hit install. Yes, give permission. And then when it stalls here, look down here at the bottom tray and click on it to say yes. And then again at this bottom tray, click next. Yes, say install, finish, and then hit launch FlashPrint, hit finish, and then you want to pick the FlashForge Finder as your machine, and you're done. Now you need to, in order to open up a file, just hit load. And then I placed, I already downloaded some printer files. I'm using Dragon Lock, and you can open up any one of these. So let's try opening up a wall, and there it is. And you can view, it's default clicked by view. You can just move this around, and then if you right click your mouse and hold it down, you can rotate it like this, which is great. And you can move it along the X and Y axis like this. And it doesn't really matter as long as it's printing on this bed. This is the size of your print bed. And then rotating it is if you want to flip it on its side and have it print on its side, but pretty much this is the way that I want to print it. And scaling is, let's see how you scale. Yeah, you can make it larger or smaller. and I'm sure there's some way to default it back to what it was before. I'm not exactly sure what cut is. Let's see if we can cut it like this along this axis. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that is. So when you want to go to print, you come up here and you click on this to print, and I clicked on enable a raft, and then you can pick whether or not you want low resolution and it will print faster, or standard, or high. So I'll go ahead with standard, and then hit OK, and then it will save it as a .gx file, and that's where you want to save. And then once you save it, then you take it, I'm not going to save this because I messed with it, but you put it onto a thumb drive and then plug it into the printer. So now I'm putting in a file. And then build. And we'll hit this and build. It's copying the file. So here is my first print. I just turned it on and had it print while I went to bed, so I actually don't know how long it took. But a dungeon wall. So it looks good. So this thing doesn't really come off very easily, so I bought one of these, and let's see how well it works at removing it. Man, that's on there tight. Not too bad. Bed here. Let's see if that snaps off pretty easily. Oh yeah, look at that. That comes right off. So, very impressive. Really flat. There's no curling up here on the edges. And so I'm very, very impressed. So I've had my FlashForge Finder for a week now, and I have been printing out a ton of stuff. And I am actually pleasantly surprised with the resolution and the detail that this printer can achieve. And so here are a couple of sample things that I've made. Some dungeon walls, a Terminator, a little toaster for SD cards to hold. This is a little dice chest that can hold dice with a functioning hinge, which is amazing to me. And I think this is Charles art, I can't remember, that I printed for my kids. And so the amount of resolution is something that really is greater than I thought it was. And here are some cats that I printed out to try to test a different resolution. So on the Finder there's 4 settings, and this is the lowest setting. And you can definitely see the striations and the layers from the print, but still, I think it's pretty good. And this little guy took 18 minutes to print out, so clearly the lower the resolution, the faster it prints out. Now this is a standard, sort of the default level of printing, and this took 25 minutes, and you can tell that there is a difference between this and the low. And then this is the high setting, which took 37 minutes to print this guy. And this one was the hyper setting, the greatest setting that you can achieve on the FlashForge Finder. and this took almost an hour to print. And to be honest, I cannot really tell the difference between the high and the hyper. So my suggestion is to not really use hyper unless there's some reason that you have to have that amount of detail, because it's not worth almost double the amount of print time for the level of detail that you get in this. I think actually the high level is the most detailed that I would probably ever use, and it's very, very hard to discern what the difference is between these two levels. And in fact, for me, standard is very acceptable, and so a lot of my prints I've actually been printing on standard level resolution, and this T2 Terminator head was printed on standard, and I think it has plenty of detail. I'm really happy with the printer. I'm really happy that I got it, and I'm excited to be able to print in this level of detail. So one of the things that I discovered pretty quickly is that my prints were bowing or not sticking to the bed when I was printing them, and it was lifting up in the corners like this. If you see, it's supposed to be completely flat, but the corners were lifting up, especially with these square pieces. See, that's pretty severe. And so I looked online, and basically you have two options with a Finder printer. It comes with this glue stick, but you can use any glue stick, and you just apply glue in the area that it's going to print, and it does actually a pretty good job of keeping the print down rather than lifting up, and you just need to use this to scrape it off once it's done. And so you just reapply this wherever it's at. Other people have used hairspray, really cheap hairspray, to keep stuff down, and I heard that worked as well, but I didn't want to spray on this and just get it everywhere. So the glue stick does a little bit better job of having control over where you're going. But what I prefer to do is actually use blue painter's tape. But the problem is you can't stick it onto here because it'll peel off here pretty quickly. So it isn't effective in creating flat prints. So what I did was I went ahead and just removed, by unclipping it here, removing this bed. And for those of you who are using this, the glue method, after a while this will wear out and you can peel this off and purchase another one. And in fact, it has these codes, QR codes that you can scan and order more of them. But I don't even use this side. I just flip it over and use the glass side, and I stick it back in. It's a little bit tighter to get back in there because that blue sheet is on the other side, but it will clip into place. And what this does is it creates a better adhesion for the blue tape. So this is a blue painter's tape. You can get this at any Home Depot or Lowe's store, and it's meant to release really easily, but for whatever reason people are using this for their 3D printers, and so all I do is I layer it, because obviously this isn't wide enough for the bed. And sometimes when I just do small prints, for example, when I printed this out, I knew that it was only going to be this big, so I only put a piece of tape right there in the center. But if I have a print that takes up the whole bed, all I do is I just set it down like this, and I put on 3 layers. The reason why I don't go all the way to the edge is because none of my prints print that far off the edge. And basically this way I can have 3 strips cover pretty much the whole thing. You want to make sure you're not overlapping, but that you're edge to edge. And it doesn't matter, again, if it's extending out here or you're not completely going there. You can control where on the bed that it prints. And I'm just showing you real quick how to do this, so I'm not being super neat, but this makes it so that the prints will stick and adhere onto this tape. So just flatten it out, make sure there's no air bubbles in there, and then slide that back in and you have a nice bed to print on. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of a gap right here, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter. Not that big a deal, as long as you get most of it covered like this. So this is where I have my printer set up next to my desk and workspace here. And one of the things I did was I actually created a spool holder out of a closet rod. And I just so happen to have these shelves in between, and I just put it up there. And I'm able to put my spools of PLA right up here. I've actually found this to be a better setup than using this back space back here, this spool, because I found that my prints, a lot of my prints had filament errors. So it would stop in the middle of a print and I would have to jiggle this out and move it around to get it going again. And so I think something like this is actually a lot better. I never had a filament error after I started spooling from up here. Now if you don't have a place to hang a closet rod to have your filament coming off of that, you can actually buy something on Amazon, and I'll put a link where you can just set it down right next to the printer or behind the printer, and it will just spool. And you can actually print something off of Thingiverse that is a spool holder, and I'll also provide a link for that as well. One of the things that the Quick Start for the printer doesn't tell you is how to change out your PLA. And so what you do is, I was doing it wrong. I was just pulling it really hard, and you definitely will mess up the gears, the feeding mechanism, if you do that. So you want to go into your menu, into Tools, and go into Filament, and hit Unload, and that will heat up. Okay, so it has heated up all the way. So first thing is you just go over here, like I said again, you want to push down on this spring-loaded button. Sorry, you're not going to be able to see, but push down and then take the filament and push it down until some of it comes through. And you can look underneath to make sure that it's coming through. And then just pull it out. And see how easy that was to do it that way? And the end will be melted like that. And then to load, you just have to hit cancel and hit load instead of unload, and it will heat up. You grab your filament that you want to put in there, and I actually like clipping the end when it's like this, uneven. I just use wire clippers and just make it a straight cut like that, and then just press it in there. Just gentle and but firm pressure until it catches in the mechanism. And you can look underneath and see if it's feeding through. And what will happen is that the old color will come through and the new color will start coming out. And then once it catches, you can let it go. And here you can see that the new color is coming in. So when you want to go print, you hit build, and you can go to the thumb drive and scroll through, and it will pick any GX files that you have on there. And then you just click on it and then hit build, and it'll start building. And it gives you an approximate, but I found that this approximate, at least for my machine, is a little bit lower than it actually is. I think this took an hour and a half rather than 7.5 hours. And then the other way is, once you actually print something, it will be on the internal drive. So this is your thumb drive here, and this is the internal drive. So once it's in here, you can just scroll through what you've made before and just click on that, and it's already internal. I don't know how big the internal drive is, and I actually don't know how to clear out the memory, but I'm guessing I'll figure it out once it maxes out, or it might just bump off the oldest files. I'm not exactly sure. I was looking at the manual and it didn't quite say, but you can just click on that, and just hit build, and that's basically what happens. Now I wanted to introduce you to a very important website for all 3D printer owners, and that is Thingiverse. So type that in and go to this website, and this is basically a website where people have uploaded their designs for things to be 3D printed. And so all of these things are free. All of the things that you saw at the beginning of the video, the samples that I printed out, is from Thingiverse, things that I pulled off of Thingiverse. Except for some of the dungeon pieces, I actually paid for those files and received those files. But most of them are actually things that I found here, and there's plenty of stuff that you can find. So to give you an example, let's just go here to some T-Rex skulls. Scroll down and see if there's something that you like. Let's click on this. This looks interesting. And let's say that I want to print this. Very simple. You just go down here to Thing Files. And we see here that this item is made up of 2 separate files. So I will go ahead and click on this file. And then when I open it, FlashPrint automatically opens and it puts it in my print area. I'll go ahead and hit yes. And sometimes the models have to be repaired. There's something wrong with it. So I will click yes. And then the model has been repaired. Now, the thing that I learned to do is, let's say I wanted to print the second file along with it, rather than creating 2 separate files. So I'll go back here to Thingiverse, and I'll go ahead and click on the second file, the Rhino Jaw. Now, if you click on it here, what happens is that it automatically opens it up in a separate FlashPrint file. And that's not what I want to do. I want it to open up in the same as where the upper portion of the skull is at. So what I need to do is go back to this file, and I need to load it. And so it needs to be saved somewhere on my hard drive, or because I recently downloaded it, I can just go to download and see here. I've done it a couple of times, and I will just double click on that. And as you can see, it pulled it up into the same file that I had this piece. So now I can actually print both of these pieces in the same run rather than having to wait until one is done and then doing the second piece. The other handy thing that I learned is how to replicate. So let's say I wanted to make 2 of these rather than just one in one print run. And so what I do is I click on here, come up to Edit, and then come down to Duplicate. And that will actually just copy a second piece, and then I can just rearrange it here like this. The keyboard shortcut for that is Control V, so you can do it either way. But let's go ahead and delete that piece. The other important thing to note is that the undercuts that are found in this skull, and both of these skulls, make it very challenging for the printer to print these undercuts really well. And so what you want to do here is create some support so that the printer can have some supports to print these undercuts. And I just use auto supports, and what that will do is automatically figure out where it needs to add some supports so that the printer can print out these pieces without compromising the structure. And so here, all of these green pieces is what the computer figured out it needs in order to print this piece out. And so the printer actually does print this whole thing out together. And what you need to do is, once it's done printing, I just use a small pair of needle nose pliers, and I carefully pry these off. You don't have to, try to cut them off. For the most part, they come off fairly easily because they're designed at these contact points to just be touching very minimally. So I've so far been able to take these pieces off just with a pair of small pliers. Now, once you are done putting in your supports and you want to print, you can go ahead and save it. I'm not going to save it since it's an example. I'll go to hit print. And in the earlier part of this video, I actually printed out a raft, a supporting structure underneath that dungeon piece that I had. And since then, I found that the raft really isn't necessary. And in fact, FlashPrint will suggest that whenever you have tree supports that you actually have a raft in place, but I found that the raft actually hasn't been necessary for me. So I just hit no. You might find that you need to do that, but it hasn't been the case for me. So one of the things also to know is that the printer does not like having really long names, and sometimes I've had some pretty long file names, and when I've gone to export it to the printer, it will say that the name is too long and that I have to rename it. I think that's because on the screen it can only handle so many characters, and I don't know what the limit is, but RhinoJaw actually is short enough, and so I'll go ahead and save it under that name. And then now it's going to render the file for printing, and we'll just wait for that. And so now it's ready to print, and since I printed the other pieces, I have actually hooked up my computer directly to the printer using the USB cable so that I don't have to use a thumb drive going back and forth anymore. And what I want to do is I want to connect the machine to my computer. And so there's a couple of times where this is blank here, and what I've had to do is unplug the USB cable and plug it back in so that my computer recognizes it once again. And it also needs to be turned on. If it's turned off, you can't connect to the printer. So I'll hit connect, and pretty much it's connected. Here's my prediction again. This 2 hours 53 minutes is low. It will probably be at least 30 minutes more than that. And then you just hit print and it will start printing. So those are some handy tools that I found in learning to use FlashPrint. So there you have it. The FlashForge Finder definitely is a plug and play printer. I had to do very little other than the most complicated thing was leveling the bed, but other than that it really does work. And so I'm super happy with my purchase. I think it is great. One thing to note though is that it does take quite a bit of time to print. So one of these guys takes about 3 hours to print. So the thing is not fast. You're not going to be producing things very quickly. In fact, some of the projects that I want to print is probably going to take an entire week of printing, and a lot of it I do just by having it print right before I go to bed, and in the morning you know, that'll be about 7 hours, 6 or 7 hours of printing. And so it is time consuming. It's not quick. Probably as the technology advances it will become quicker, but what you get is the convenience and the cool factor of being able to print these things, and it is a lot higher quality in detail than I thought. It isn't quite as high of detail where I would be printing a lot of miniatures off of it, although this one is fairly detailed and I'm impressed at the amount of detail that's in it, but it still doesn't match the details that you can get from cast miniatures. But other than that, I'm going to be making a lot of terrain and a lot of projects like this. I'm very excited about it, and the cost is very, very low. A kilogram of spool is about $23. I use Hatchbox that you can find on Amazon, and I'm sure that there's others that work well too. And so very excited about it, very excited about the level of detail, and I will follow up with some videos of comparing the different kinds of dungeons, and I have a really cool idea that I have where I'm going to be modifying these, but that will be in a later video. Otherwise, thanks for watching.